Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode. We're going to talk today about some common log ingestion concepts. So, if you don't mind, can I choose where we start this episode? Can I pick a topic and then you explain it to me and then I get to leave?
You frighten me.
No. What else is new?
But why not, right? Where's our sense of adventure? Go for
Yeah.
it. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with time synchronization. How is this relevant?
Oh, man, it seems dumb, doesn't it? It's like,
So dumb.
what do you need time? What does it matter whether
Time's
or
not
not
real.
my server's, clock is the same as your server's clock? Well, you would think that, but the truth of the matter is it's actually quite important. Like it's a big deal, like a real big deal. Like if your server and this server and that server don't line up time-wise, they do not talk to each other. There will be no discussing things here, especially in a Windows world. Don't let your time get off, because if it does, forget about logging in. It ain't happening. Right? You've probably experienced this from time to time. I love a pun. They are fun, aren't they? Anyway, moving on. If those times get off, now why is that such a big deal? Well, a lot of it comes down to security, right? Kerberos is very time sensitive. That's a big deal when it comes to that. But we're talking about log ingestion. Well, when did the thing happen, Your Honor? Oh, so you're saying that the log says this is when it happened. Well, my client couldn't possibly have done it because they were in Philadelphia eating a cheesesteak sandwich at that very moment in time. You see, our logs were, the server time was off a bit. Prove it. So there's a legal aspect to those logs. If you ever need to use your logs to establish an accurate and legally binding timeline and make it legally admissible in a court of law. So if Sophia was a threat actor and she breached our systems and we somehow attributed it to her, and this is her threat actor. She's gone into threat actor mode. So everybody
just calm down.
Right,
Just calm down.
She's quick and crafty.
Both.
Be
Sometimes
careful.
at the same time.
She will crawl you like a spider monkey. Okay.
So if I'm the spider monkey threat actor,
If you're the spider monkey threat actor, I need to establish that. Well, at the time she did the thing, because if I can't, judge is going to have no choice but to go, that is not admissible, right? Or it doesn't prove your case because the time is off. So that is probably number one reason we want these things. And of course, we want to avoid things like errors when the time is off. That does occur, right? But being able to establish that timeline and being able, okay, this is the order of events in which they occurred, and it is accurate. That's going to help us during incident response. That's going to help us in a myriad of different ways. So we use things like NTP, right, the Network Time Protocol, to make all this happen. That I say we use things like it is the thing we use. There might be derivations of that, and I was like, who makes the NTP service that we are using? But ultimately, it is using that protocol to sync up and synchronize all those times. So that's why time synchronization is on this is an important thing for us to know. It's extremely important. Without it, we could be left in the weeds on some things.
at the very least, it could cause some errors and some issues, and then I guess in the worst case scenario, like you said, legally, that could have it could be bad.
Yes.
So good to know why time synchronization is important. But now that we've got that covered, I also want to talk about logging levels, which I think determine like how severe or important an event is.
That is it. That is exactly right. Now this comes out of old syslog, right? I think syslog was where the what we think of as log levels is kind of the progenitor of log levels. You can find different types of log levels I say different types. A better way to put it would be differently labeled log levels, but they kind of report the same types of things in the same kind of ways. So what you see might be different. What I'm going to give you is the most common log levels that you will see. Okay? They are, in this not so great order, fatal, error, warn or warning, info, as well as debug and trace. These are the ones you want to look out for, okay? And since these are the ones you're going to find in syslog, we can just use syslog to kind of demo this. And then we'll go through each one of them, talk about each one of them, and explain why you care about each one of them. How about that? So let's get into my syslogs, shall we?
Oh boy.
cd/var/log. If you're running a Linux operating system, you most likely have syslog happening, maybe not as a service for everybody to use, but your local machine will be using syslog. So if I ls, I have right here, bam, syslog, right there. Then we have syslog.1, and then you see the .gzs, which is where these are older logs that have been compressed, and they're just being archived. So if I want to go back farther, I can, but I just have to pull them out of the archive. So let's start with fatal. What do you think fatal means?
That sounds like it would maybe be the most severe. It kind of sounds like it's like, okay, if this is an error or an issue, an event, it could like result in your system dying or something.
Yeah.
Fatal.
You ever have your computer just like throw a bunch of weird text on the screen and then lock up and do nothing? That would be what we call a fatal event. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's it. It's a crash.
Okay.
Crash. System crash.
Bad.
Let's see if we can log a fatal event. I don't know if I have one available, but fingers crossed, right? So I'll just cat old syslog. Actually, I'll grep for fatal. Grep for fatal, and in the syslog log. Oh, we do have a few fatal events that did occur. So it doesn't necessarily mean my computer crashed, but maybe a service crashed, maybe an application I was running crashed. I will try to make this a little more readable. And we do get some great information. Oh, don't worry, I'll scroll in. There we go. I think I'll go here. Okay. So here's the log. As you can see, it gives you a date and time right out of the gates. Right? Those are important. Tells you some other information about this stuff. What was running, container D, the time that this occurred again. It seems like time's important.
No.
The level is info, right? The message is... So notice it says level equals info. I don't necessarily know that this is what's categorizing this, because we also have fatal right here from modprobe. The module AUFS is not found, most likely. Yeah, found in directory, libmodules, so on and so forth. So skip plugin, type blah, blah, blah. So there was a couple of things going. It might be pulling it because this was a container. Maybe this is the container log kind of bleeding out into syslog. Could be that, because it does say level here as info, but we are getting some fatal messages here. Something was wrong, and because of that, we couldn't move any further down the road.
So an error would be less severe than that?
An error is less severe, right? It is. So errors happen. We see errors all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that your system is going to crash, but it might have strange behavior because of it. It might not have full functionality because of it, right? Because errors typically are when one or more function or action that should have occurred was prevented. It just did not happen, right? Why did that happen? We don't know. Maybe that error message has that information in there. Let's try to take a look at one. Let's grep for error in syslog. I know it's small. Don't worry. Yeah,
Ooh.
These are definitely errors that occurred. So here's some with XRDP. I use XRDP to connect to graphical interface here, right? And I can see sec incoming, MCS incoming failed. But that doesn't necessarily mean that XRDP didn't work. It just means that function did not work. Here's the error. Here's the understanding. Here's when it happened. So if I'm like, oh, I'm getting all these errors for XRDP, what is that about? And remember, if anybody's working on this stuff, I love when I used to work at help desk back in my day, right, when I was making my bones, right, as an IT person. People would call, hey, I got an error on the screen. Cool, what does it say? I don't know, I clicked away. Oh, did you take a screenshot? Nah. Did you write it down? Nah. You remember anything that it said at all? Nah. Is anything broken? I mean, everything seems to be working, but I got the error, so I figured I'd tell you. Great.
How many errors can there possibly be in the world, Daniel? I mean, it can't be that hard to narrow it down.
Well, geez, I mean, what good does there was an error do for me?
If you don't know what the error was.
Right, if I don't know what it is, what am I supposed to do? So it's nice for us to be able to like look in here and find these logs and to see, oh, okay, there was an issue with XRDP. Maybe I need to look into XRDP. Maybe it needs to be reinstalled. Maybe it needs to be updated. Maybe something that I've installed is conflicting with it. Who knows? But those errors are going to be what helps us figure that stuff out. Nice.
So then there's also warn, which from what I understand is like it's when something weird happened, but it didn't like nothing. It didn't mean that the operation stopped. It was just like, hey, something weird happened, but we were able to continue.
Yes. So instead of like that piece not working, being prevented from functioning or actioning or doing whatever, it was still able to limp along, but it was I didn't expect this. So I'm just going to warn you. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but you probably need to get eyes on this thing. I'm going to continue doing what I do. A lot of times we see warnings when it kind of like, most of the times I see warnings when I'm running code that I've written and I go to run it through the compiler. Maybe I'm and it's like, hey, warning, you're using a module that you probably shouldn't be using, or you've got this happening and it's not going to stop this from working, but it's not the best way to do that. So warnings can be that. And of course, we get warnings after these things run. So let's grep for that. Let's grep for warn in syslog. And we do have some warnings. Cool. Let's see what we get. Right? What's this one? Local key map file for random hex value found and doesn't match the built-in key map that is using. Or so it's using something else, letting us know, using local key map file. So this was like, hey, I didn't expect this weird key map that you got, so I'm just going to use the local key map. I expected something different. It's asking for something I'm not familiar with. Not the end of the world, but you may want to take a look at that, if you want to get rid of this warning. Okay, it's good to know. That's a definite log level. That was a really good example, honestly, right? Here's one looking for a certificate file, again with XRDP, a warning, cannot accept TLS connections because certificate or private key file is not a readable certificate file. I love overscroll. It is my favorite thing on earth. Okay. And here's the certificate file. Well, okay. Well, it didn't stop it from working. It just says I can't accept these TLS connections at this point. Cool.
I wish that machines would actually respond that way instead of just being like, warn, and then that's it. I wish it was like a little guy would pop up and be like, hey, so not the end of the world. Everything's fine. But maybe just double check that. Maybe just take a look. I wish there was a little Daniel that would pop up and do that.
Yeah, you would get sick of seeing me after one day.
I would get sick of seeing you?
I guarantee it, right? If I was warning you about everything that happened, because guess what? This stuff happens a lot.
That implies I'm not already
right?
sick of you,
so
Daniel.
Here, right, this is just these files.
Yeah.
Right. Don't forget yesterday and the day before and the day before, and we're constantly archiving. Mm-hmm. You'd be like, all right, Daniel, shut up.
Just pop up after pop up.
Yeah,
My sister would
I don't want to see that anymore.
So then we also have info, which that's like standard, right?
That's it. A standard log data, right? This is who and what happened. When did the event occur? Was the success status there, right? What was that? Did it do well? Did it not do well? Just give me some information. Mm-hmm. Info. Easy peasy, right? So if I just do, I guess just cat syslog, because it doesn't say anything usually there. Sometimes I guess it would. It would have the info. Let's look for info. Some of these might be designated as info. Yeah, there we go. We got a few of these. There we go. We got starting the default window manager on display 10. Etsy XRDP start wm.sh. Cool. There's the date and time that occurred. Here's the user that ran it. Here's what I'm trying to run. XRDP sysman. Awesome. It ran. There it is. Starting the default. Info. It's just information.
Pretty straightforward.
Very straightforward.
Oh.
I like it.
I do like
These are the logs we typically work with.
This is the standard stuff this is what you see a lot of. Okay.
Yeah. Only if you're troubleshooting will you probably really want to pull in from the other stuff. Like, I need to know about warnings. I need to know about
errors and stuff.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Where would we maybe see that debug thing, the debug flag?
All right. So debug is very fine-grained data. I say very fine. It's fine-grained data. It's much more fine-grained than what we have seen to this point. Okay. This is going to help us to make sure our systems are running correctly. It's often used to troubleshoot issues. Again, it's going to be one of those troubleshooting things. If I need to debug, I used debug a lot when I was doing Cisco stuff. So I was working with routers and switches and everything. Every now and then I would turn on debug so I could make sure everything was, because it would do it to the screen. It would just start pumping out debug information to the screen. And I could watch it and go, oh, okay, yeah, I'm seeing the right stuff. Oh, what's this? And you have to, disable the debug. It just becomes a pain. But let's see if we got any debug stuff up in here. Let's grep for debug in syslog. I got nothing there. How about syslog.1? Anything? No. So I've had no debug issues. A lot of times that's something you have to turn on. right? Maybe something is generating a debug or debug information. That's probably when you are really trying to tune these things up and look for it, because it's fine-grained data. I obviously don't have any debug, but that's ultimately what you're looking for. And that is not to be confused with our last one, which is trace information. If you've ever seen a stack trace, or you've turned on debug or trace in your code when you're writing code, maybe I'm running a website and I need to look and see how that goes. A lot of times that information will get turned on. By the way, don't leave it on, because it contains a lot of sensitive information. Trace is the most finely grained data, though. It's so fine. It's like a salt. Just
like a sand on a
yes,
beach.
Indeed.
On a beautiful white beach.
Yeah, that's sugar sand.
The sugar sand,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Here in Florida, we have what we call sugar sand. And you don't drive your vehicle on that stuff, because you better get another big vehicle to pull it out. Because you are going down. That sand is so fine. It will just
delicacy.
Like, even if your hand is dry as a bone, it'll stick to it. That's how fine that sand is. That's what we're talking about with trace.
Okay.
That's this level.
A good comparison.
I like it.
I do think
my analogy.
I do think it's funny how I know you put it in the notes this way for a reason. You talked about debug and how that's finely grained data, and then trace, which is like more than that.
Yeah,
most
super fine.
The way you described it was most finely granulated data, which makes sense. But the way my brain read it was the most finely granulated data. Data of the most finely granulated variety.
Yes.
So
you will not find a finer data
in all the land,
this
data. Most finely granulated trace data. So.
If you have the means, I highly recommend.
So that's my giggle for the day. It just made me
that's a
laugh.
good
So
one.
you'll probably see that in the notes, I guess, when you look at your notes, as you should.
That's it.
So there you go. That's some common log ingestion concepts that we need to be aware of. We talked about time synchronization and then some logging levels that we need to be aware of. So thanks for walking us through that. And as always, thank you for joining us. See you next time.